can pass that out to other rugby clubs across the country. So this evening we've got 2 guest speakers, and a massive thank you to for your time tonight. So first person coming on will be Bob Sharples, who's Principal Planning Manager for Sport England, and Campbell Williams as the second speaker, who is from Trojan Sports Club, who've had courts installed this year with a paddle company last year. So also joining us tonight is Alex Thompson in the background. So Alex and myself will be checking the chat. If you've got any questions as we move through this evening, if you want to chuck them in the chat, myself and Alex will pick those up at the end of both presentations and ask our guest speakers some of those questions. So why did the RFU get involved with paddle? So originally, various RFU staff were being approached by various companies, and lots of clubs around the country, as you'll appreciate, were being approached directly by paddle companies, and some of those were asking us for support. So what we've done from an RFU point of view is really be a check and challenge and a chat with some of those clubs, and we've also created some guidance for rugby clubs in conjunction with the LTA as the governing body, so the Lawn Tennis Association. Opportunity for rugby clubs, absolutely massive, and obviously we'll hear from Campbell later on. But in terms of paddle, there's been a massive growth in 2 years, and we've currently got 7 rugby clubs operating sites across the country with 26 courts currently in rugby clubs. And I know that there's at least another 50 or 60 rugby clubs in various levels of discussion with paddle operators. And we've also got some rugby clubs who are looking to install potentially 1 or 2 courts themselves to cater for their need in a local area where they maybe haven't got the land or the space. Paddle growth in terms of from a club point of view, and you can see the trajectory of what's happening. So in 2021, there was a reported 187 paddle courts in the UK. We're now up at 893 in February of this year. So you can see the growth and the pathway, and I'd expect that to probably double in the next 2 to 3 years in the UK. Before I hand over to Bob, I'll put my details in the chat. So I'm Steve Smith from the RFU. If any of the clubs or any of the paddle operators want to have a chat away from this afterwards and just sort of pick my brains or ask about other clubs and other areas in the country, then feel free to do so. And without taking any more time, I'm going to pass straight over to Bob.
Thank you very much indeed. Can everyone see this, please? Yep, excellent. Yep. Right, so basically, I'll cut straight into it. What we're going to cover is our Sport English role in the planning system, because we actually have quite a substantial role when it comes to this type of thing. What to watch out for when considering paddle tennis from a planning point of view. Biodiversity net gain. Some of you might have come across this before, and then the question answers are going to come right at the back end. So, where to get help with your planning application? We've got a couple of things right away to flag up. On our website, we've got making a planning application, and we've got the Buddle, which gives you free support and learning resources, how to make your group thrive, which includes dealing with planning. Planning can be a complete pain in the backside, to be quite honest, speaking as an architect, but also as a planner. Cutting straight into it, and this is the bit that people don't get, is a playing field means the whole of a site which encompasses at least one playing pitch. It's not a playing pitch, it's a playing field. A playing pitch means delineated area which, together with any runoff area, is 0.2 of a hectare. It was amended a few years ago from 0.4, it's come down. And it's used for a number of sports, but we're only interested tonight, really, in rugby union. It has that other rugby thing, which I don't understand. So the whole is site. what we've got here is we've got two slide pictures. One which is cut off by a river. That includes both sides of the river. And then this here, which includes artificial grass pitch, small artificial grass pitches, running track, and a leisure centre that's got a natural pitch as well. So we have to think and look at our site. What does our site actually have? And most rugby pitches should fall into our statutory consultation. If you've got a bit of land adjacent to it, that's where we say the whole of the site, it will fall into it unless it's a brand new area that you're buying in, you're acquiring. Again, the whole of the site. I've left this one. I did something with skateboard last week just to sort of make the point that this here, up where it says Wool Skate Park, used to be a multi-use games area and they changed it to a skate park. We would still be notified as a statutory consultee. So even though you might have a car park, the car park will be part of the site in situations like a rugby club. And I've got an example of that. When should we be consulted? Development is likely to prejudice the use or lead to loss of use of land being used as a playing field. On land which has been used as a playing field in the last 5 years, allocated in a development plan, or involves the replacement of a grass surface of a playing pitch for artificial, man-made or competent. So that's when we should be consulted. But again, we're focusing on paddle. So a paddle could prejudice the use of this site. Example A. This was done at Salford Rugby Club. We had a pre-application. First message tonight, please consult us as soon as possible when you're thinking about introducing paddle to your club site. The area that they are looking at is on the right-hand picture, where they're thinking about putting paddle at the bottom. Sport England has not objected to this yet, but we have asked for clarity on a number of issues to ensure, first of all, you can still play rugby on the site. It looked like from the drawings that we received, it could still work, but it was a close call. And then you've got the issue if paddle is going to go on when the rugby is going on, unless it's covered over, you get balls landing on the paddle people, which is not really great. So this is the type of thing that we'd like early doors. You don't have to have any drawings. You just can give us a Google Earth image. X marks the spot of where you think you're going to put something. And we can give you best advice on that, on whether or not something is a runner or not. It's really important because you don't want to waste time, effort, and money going down a rabbit warren that you're never going to get anything from. Things to consider is the size of the paddle courts. 10 by 20 meters for a single one by 7 meters high. If you put a roof over it, it can be 8.5 meters high. If you put a roof over it, depending where you are, you may have to consider some sound attenuation in that roof space because the sound will reverberate like nobody's business. So sound attenuation is something to consider. We have produced guidance, I commissioned guidance a number of years ago for artificial pitches. In order not to run foul of local authority environmental health, we strongly recommend you build 50 meters away from the nearest habitable room. Not back garden, but habitable room. If you don't, you may have to do a noise assessment, and therefore that's additional expense. Those can come in anywhere between 1,500 and £3,500. So it's an expensive thing to do. If you can site your paddle away from neighbours, ideal. The other thing is that what we see at Sport England regularly is about 4 paddle courts at a time. We've seen 2 and we've seen 3, but 4 seems to be the optimum and above. So again, talking to people who are perhaps going to be paddle providers, etc., you've got to understand how much land they're going to take off. But I'll be, I've sent these slides to the RFU and they might want to circulate it afterwards. We have exceptions on when we will not object to a planning application, and I won't go through them all. I want to focus on one, and it aligns with the National Planning Policy Framework, paragraph 104, and it's our exception E5. The proposed development is for an indoor or outdoor sports facility, the provision of which will be sufficient to benefit the development of sport to outweigh the detriment caused by the loss of the playing fields. Now, again, if you remember, I talked about the whole of the site. This is Worthing, and the beautiful thing about Worthing, at first glance, is on the left-hand picture, you see this crappy bit of land. That's where they were going to put the paddle. We didn't have a problem with that. This one was easy, but then we had biodiversity net gain. And the biodiversity net gain must also not prejudice the playing field. This one was resolved, fortunately, but it was something that somebody forgot to address because the biodiversity net gain only came into force last February 25th, 2024. And local authorities are still playing catch up. So you have to be very careful about, you might have the land to put the paddle tennis, but you've got to provide biodiversity net gain. Even though you're using crappy land, that still has to have a 10% increase of what your site is. So that's a lot of money. If you have it on site, and I'll speak about this later, but it's a lot of money to actually lay out either on site or off site. Bear with me. Further notes on our role. We, as a statutory consultee, should be giving great weight on the determination of planning applications that are statutory. If we object, and if we object, we normally object on a number of reasons. And believe it or not, that includes the RFU saying this planning application is barking. They're building in their dead ball zone. They cannot continue to play rugby at the level they're doing if this development goes ahead. I'm actually thinking of a car park that I dealt with a few years ago. And another one was the rugby club wanted to put up a patio, which actually sat inside their runoff area, health and safety. So we actually have objections from the RFU as part of our discussions with them. So speak to us, speak to the RFU before you think about putting a planning application in. Always provide accurate drawings. Always. Now, for a pre-app, as I say, it will take X marks the spot if you're just testing the water. But if you're going for a full pre-app, you will need to have accurate drawings, marked scale on the plan, north point. You have to provide summer and winter. Now, rugby union, even I know, is a winter sport. But if you're sharing your site with, say, rounders or cricket, we need to see that. To be honest, we'll look at Google Earth, but you still need to show it. We need as much information as possible if you want a complete formal pre-app, because what we then do is you could take what we write to the bank, and if we support it, then we will actually defend you at your planning application or even planning appeal. So this is a winter layout, which you should all be familiar with. This is a summer layout, cricket, in case you didn't know what a cricket pitch looked like. We don't do very well at cricket at the moment, at least Scotland doesn't. Now we get to the bit that's really difficult, that people are struggling with, even local authorities. As I said, you put paddle courts up, you will be liable for biodiversity net gain. You need to consult with an ecologist. It's something that you should get in before you submit a planning application. Most authorities now will not accept a planning application without biodiversity net gain. We will not support a planning application unless we know where the biodiversity net gain is going. We can advise where we think it could go without any problem, but this is a mandatory thing that you have to submit as part of your planning application. We're about to publish biodiversity net gain guidance. That should be on our website, I would hope, by the middle of July. It will be worth a look at because we try and sort of demystify things. But you need to look at it as soon as possible. As soon as you decide you're doing a development on your site, start to think where you can put it. Not on your playing fields. Edge of playing fields can probably do. Car parks, around the car parks is usually a safe place. You've also got to watch out for any habitats. And again, talking to your local authority, they should keep a record of where the local habitats are for badgers, bats, voles, water rats, etc., etc. And the thing I wanted to emphasize, should you decide, and it is practical, to keep your biodiversity net gain on site, you have to look after it for 30 years. It will be a planning condition. It could even be a legal agreement. I know one or two authorities that actually do it as a legal agreement. But it's 30 years. And if it's a condition or a legal agreement, it can be enforced on the 29th year, 11 months, and 29 days. So you've got to be damn careful about it. If you were to put it off-site, the cost is horrendous. For an full-size rugby artificial pitch, you're probably talking in the region of somewhere in £120,000. 4 paddle courts, maybe £50,000. I don't know. So you've got to be careful. It depends on the area. Vale of Whitehorse and South Oxfordshire go above the recommended 10%. They can do that because they've adopted a planning document. Windsor and Maidenhead have also gone above the 10%. So you have to be very careful. And again, ponds, suds, you can turn around and make that BNG quite comfortably, but you've got to be careful that you don't interfere with your rugby pitch. Your rugby clubs, you focus on rugby clubs, your rugby game, really important. Here's another couple of examples. This is Darlington. What you can see is a bit of scrubland on the bottom left-hand corner. That's the whole site, and that's the paddle courts going in. There was quite a lot of BNG to be done, but where they put it was on some other scrubland that they had. What we would say is be careful where you put it, because the other scrubland next to the car park could have been converted into mini and junior rugby. And if you want to do that in the future, you will start again with the BNG at 30 years. So if you've been running for 10 years, you've got to start again and go for another 30. So it can get expensive and annoying. And that's it from me. Thank you very much indeed. Pass over to Campbell.
Hi. Yeah, my name's Campbell Williams. Hopefully everyone can hear me. If you can't, wave, but hopefully everyone can hear me. I'm a director of Trojan Sports Club in Hampshire, which is a multi-sports club where we play hockey, cricket, rugby, and squash. We've also got an archery club on site and now have 6 paddle tennis courts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, hopefully. And you'll see a picture of my gran if all goes well. Can you all see that?
Not yet.
Hang on.
Yep.
Yeah, you got that?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So the reason that's up there is that's my gran, who was the last direct descendant of the first Welsh team that ever beat the All Blacks in 1905. And we're now in the 120th year of my family playing sport, as far as I can work out. And we still do it now. So I've got 2 children playing sport at Trojans. I play sport. My dad played sport. She played sport for Wales. And so amateur sport is really important, which is why I spend some time doing it. So hopefully I will be able to move my screen on. I can't work out how to. Oh, there we go. Right. So this is Trojan Sports Club in 2000. So if you can see my cursor, this bit here we own, and similar to what Bob was showing earlier, it's got a cricket pitch. We've got rugby pitches, we've got a hockey pitch, and we've got some car parking, we've got a clubhouse. And down in this corner here, we've got some cricket nets. If I move forward to 2022, the car parking has got a bit bigger. The cricket nets are still there. We've put floodlights on these 2 pitches, which is why you can see they're absolutely hammered. And the hockey pitches have an upgrade. Clubhouse is still there. But we also, as of 2019, control this bit of land down the bottom here, which we have a long-term lease with a local authority. What you can also see in here is that there isn't a house anywhere on here, and there's a motorway about 130 metres away from the club. So potentially quite a good site for paddle. And we got some contact, and this red dot is where we've got the paddle courts, and that's because it's a good spot. It's miles from anywhere, and it's on a bit of land we didn't use. But the reason we got them is because I got an email in May 2022 from a paddle tennis company, basically saying, I don't know if you've heard of paddle, but would you like to have some? And we then, as a club, thought, oh, that's well, and led by me, we sort of went through and said that's quite a good concept. That fits really nicely with what we do as a club. And we went and found 3 other paddle tennis companies, and basically did a bit of a tender exercise, and went with the ones who we liked, and the ones who gave us the best deal financially and were the best deal with our club, or best fit with our club. And so with them, we then went through the process of planning permission, which Bob has just talked a bit about. Now, our planning permission was a bit different. If I go back, so this red dot is here is where we are. As I said, there's no one anywhere near it. This is basically where the groundsman kept some old tractors. I'm sure if you're a rugby club, you've all got old tractors hid somewhere. There were some shipping containers down here and some old bits of scrub and some really old cricket nets. So we went in for planning permission, but at the same time, we also went in for planning permission to knock this bit of the club down and build a new clubhouse, which we did at the same time. So biodiversity net gain didn't affect us because it wasn't an issue in 2023 when we applied. But all the things which Bob talked about not building on playing fields and not having a direct impact were relevant, because whilst all of this area is used for junior rugby in the winter. It's also used for the outfield of a cricket pitch in the summer. So you can see the cricket pitch really clearly there. So we couldn't really build inside the boundary of that cricket pitch. And if you are in Hampshire and your cricket club is in the Southern Premier Cricket League and ours is in Division 2 of that, you need to be a minimum of 50 yards from the middle stump of 5 pitches. And therefore that was the size of the paddle tennis area we could have under planning, which led through why we did them the way we did. So we went for planning, and we had some drawings done, and everyone was very supportive of it. I think we had one complaint, but because we did it alongside rebuilding our clubhouse, we got loads and loads of support from all the members, which was really good. And we went in for planning, not the paddle company. So they paid us for their bit, but it was our name on the top of the list. So we were the ones with plan permission, not them. And we got that plan permission in September 2023. And we signed a lease with the company we signed a lease with, which was called Padel Stars, and they basically started paying us as soon as we had plan permission and as soon as all the legal bits in the lease had been agreed. So basically they started paying us in January 2024, and they started building in about March 2024. Being a rugby club, I'm sure as you will have, these two guys, I think they're junior rugby coaches, so they did some of the work for them. And we had a couple of people from the club did some of the work, which helped bring the cost down. And this is just a picture of some of the 100-foot high conifer trees, which we took down to enable the paddle tennis courts to go in. One way of sort of building a partnership with paddle tennis companies. So here's a Google Earth photograph from, this is about July 2024, so less than a year ago. So what we are looking at, if I can find my cursor, there it is. So we've got, the planning permission was for 2 outdoor paddle tennis courts here, and that is 46 meters from the middle stump over there. So it fits within the planning boundary. All these trees all the way along that line were taken down, which required Forestry Commission approval, because you can only take down 5 cubic meters of wood in one go without it. These trees here were part of the plan permission. All those weren't, but we took those down at the same time. And we had permission for 4 indoor courts along here. And again, this nibbled into the outfield of the cricket pitch. We had a very, very big cricket pitch, and nibbled a little bit into where some junior rugby was being played. But overall, because of the new clubhouse and the new sport which we were getting, it got through the planning permission and got the okay from Sport England. So that's what it looked like in less than a year ago. About that time, here's a picture. If you look on Google Maps, you can see the pictures. So you've got the 2 outdoor courts over here, and they opened them fairly quickly. So they were open in about September 2024. And then they basically were doing the groundworks for the indoor ones at the same time. And you can see our clubhouse over here. You can see the floodlight rugby pitches over there. That's a school called King Edward's. That's their rugby pitches over there. But the reason they were doing this was to get these 2 open and get people playing on them, so they could build a bit of momentum. So that was good. And that build went on and on. They had a time-lapse camera set up, so I could, obviously I didn't sit at work watching the time-lapse camera, but if I'd wanted to, I could have sat at work watching the time-lapse camera of these things going up. It took about 3 days for this frame to go up, which is really exciting to watch. And you can see the scale of what we've got there. And that's the indoors. So that's a fisheye lens. So it's actually that's a straight line in essence. And then not a terribly good photograph, but they then put on the outside a cover on it. What the cover does is, if you look at the bottom level, which is open, that is effectively a concertina door. So when it's nice and sunny, they can open that, and so it looks like you're outside. When it's not very sunny, you can close it. And the top level, if you look up here, that looks slightly convex or concave. Never remember which one it is. But there's basically that's a pillow of air in there. So there's two bits, which means it stops condensation and it keeps it slightly cooler in the summer and slightly warmer in the winter. And they're still building at that point, so that hadn't been used. So when it's finished and it's being operational, and in the evening, it looks like that. So there's no issues with light pollution, particularly because of where we are. There's a motorway about 100 meters to the right. There's an airport in the bottom left-hand corner. We've got 2 AstroTurf pitches. So we got 3 sets of floodlights on sports pitches. There's a lot of sports pitches around there, but you can see what that looks like. So they then open that, and the deal we have with them is essentially we have leased them a piece of land, and we've leased them the space of the 4 courts, which are indoors, the 2 outdoor courts, and basically a line along here upon which they can do some stuff and put some seating out there. And I'll show you another slide of what they've done there. And essentially, they're paying a grand rent per court, which goes to our club. And their business model is they've just built the courts. We have car parking, toilets, showers, everything else which they use. So they also pay us, as well as a grand rent, they pay us a further fee to use the facilities that we have. And if anyone comes into our bar, which they will do, and they do, we have that turn in income. And they've also now installed a small bar on their area as well, which we're generating further income from. And we've also got a profit share agreement with them on the bookings they take over a certain amount. And they're doing quite nicely at the moment, and they're very busy. The other thing we did is, and this wasn't part of what they paid for, we sort of jointly improved our car park. So this area here is now a much better car parking area. Very nice picture of the moon over there, about 3 weeks ago. But there's now a much larger car parking area, and that's all in line with what the plan permission was. So this is what it looks like as of last week. I mentioned earlier on that if you go back to my first picture, there's some cricket nets in this corner. We're a cricket club, so we didn't want to lose those. And as part of the Sport England conditions, we weren't allowed to just build over cricket nets. So we moved the cricket nets to the other corner of the cricket pitch, and built some new cricket nets here, which was partly paid for by the money which Padel Stars were giving us. So there's out of this, not only did we get ongoing income, but we got some more cricket nets, which was really good. They've since built a bit of a social area out here, and it's a very nice thing to do, is to sit here with a cold drink of your choosing and watch some cricket going on, and during the winter it might be a hot drink of your choosing and watch some rugby being played. And we're not bad at rugby. Our ladies rugby team have just got promoted into the 2nd division, I think, at the moment. So well done them. Hooray. But one of the reasons this is really good is it sort of fits in with the club that we have. Loads of people, when I go in and play, are people I recognise from the club. We are a very well-known club in the area. We are on 2 motorways. We're by a railway line. It's really easy to get to. We've got a lot of parking. And it's a really fun sport, and Padel Stars are fully operating it. It's nothing to do with us. So they've taken the risk on building it. They're taking the income, and they're managing it. They are, one of a number of companies. I think we were the first one they built, and they stumbled across a number of issues with building it, because they'd never built one before. And that's why I'm quite pleased we didn't build it. We could have done, but we're not taking any risk, and we're just generating the income. I did hear someone say the other day, the way to become rich in paddle is be the landlord. And we're not becoming rich, but it's a really beneficial thing for our club, and it fits really nicely with what we're doing. So there's a little view from the other side looking out, which is really nice. Setting sun in the evening. It's fantastic. And the sort of thing they're doing is Martin Afire came down last Saturday. They had a bit of a party. All the paddle courts were full. He was on the DJ and playing paddle, and it was great. And it was really busy at the club that day, which was good for us. And there's just one of me, just to show what it looks like indoors. It's really good fun sport. It fits really nicely with the club ethos of us as a rugby, hockey, cricket, and squash club, and it's really enjoyable and it's working. It's working really nicely at the moment. So I think it's my 10 minutes. Very happy to answer any questions, but I'll see if I can move my cursor and stop sharing there if that's okay.
I think we might give you a minute to get your breath back, Campbell, and we've got a couple of questions for Bob. So if I could ask you to come off mute, Bob. Question from Kelly Harris about the 50 metres. Is that mitigated in terms of if there was a road running through the site? So I'm guessing it.
Yes, if there's a nice road between the site and the dwelling, definitely. Railway tracks are wonderful, but if it's just an access road, not so much, because you're not going to have much traffic going up and down. Access roads, not so much. Definitely main roads, love the motorway here, and railway tracks, definitely.
So I'm guessing that's just based on the noise that road would cause, Bob. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll get technical. World Health Organization suggests that background noise at 9 o'clock at night should be 55 decibels. You'd be surprised to know that hockey generates the most noise, not football. Hockey can regularly get up to, I think it's 90 decibels during the game with the banging of the sticks and balls off the side. Football, they just shout and swear, so that's intermittent. So
brilliant. And then the biodiversity net gain required if you're going to use a car park, not around the car park, from Kelly. So I'm guessing that's if you were just to put the courts on a car park. Do you need PNG?
You've still got to provide 10%. That's what it says. So they look at this. They look at the area. Now, if you just draw your red line around the car park, then basically that will have some form of biodiversity starting point. You will have to produce something, even if it's a couple of trees. And where do you put the couple of trees? You certainly don't want to put a couple of deciduous trees on next to paddle courts that are not got covers over the top of them, because that's health and safety.
Bro, and from Mark Coles, I think this is on the exemption E5, just in terms of what defines sufficient benefit, and is there anything there, or is that as wide as it could be?
It starts off with, you may have heard of a playing pitch strategy, because I recognise quite a number of clubs. I've worked all over the country in my 20 odd years at Sport England. So playing pitch strategies determine how many playing pitches are required for the various sports, rugby union, football, cricket, etc. Now, if there is a shortage of football, which, to be honest, currently there probably is in most parts of the country, you cannot put paddle on top of football. We're here to protect playing fields, not paddle courts, unfortunately. And the LTA always have a go at us for that. So we protect playing fields. If there is no need for playing fields, and this happens so rarely. I do one every 2 to 3 years. It's called an exception E1. That's paragraph 104 bullet point A. They are so rare. I think in the whole of Sport England, we might only get one a year. And that's usually the deepest, darkest Shropshire, Herefordshire, or the back of beyond. If you're near a metropolitan city, you've got a cat's chance of hell of actually achieving a surplus requirement, I'm afraid. But that's what we weigh up. Do we need the playing fields? If the answer is yes, then it will not outweigh the loss of a playing field.
Brilliant. That's clear. Thank you. And then final one just for you, Bob, in terms of decibel noise levels for indoor courts or outdoor courts. We've had a couple of questions on that.
Yeah, I see that. We don't have that. That would have to be done, taken. But what I can tell you is that, my colleague who dealt with this last planning application, the Trojans, dealt with a really nasty one in Guildford, where a tennis wall was erected. So you had this bang, 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 bang all the day long. That was sufficient to actually breach the 55 dBs. So the tennis wall had to be taken down. Well, it wasn't, it was just left there, but they could not use it because the stop notice that can be put on this something, if it's not worded correctly, it can cover the whole site. And I mean the whole site. And then you spend usually 6 weeks if you're lucky. Normally it's about 3 months getting the stop notice redesigned to fit the noise emitting area, which would be the paddle courts. But I would be guessing that with paddle courts, you're probably going to be going beyond the 55 dB. But again, it's where it's located. They can go 120 dBs. That's a jet engine taking off. Providing they're far enough from property, it's okay. That's the key thing.
Yeah,
thank you.
Can I just tip in there? Because I think it's, we built this, we didn't know how noisy it would be. They are noisy because the sound of the ball hitting the racket is quite an unusual noise, and it's quite loud, and it's also really enjoyable. So there's a lot of laughing and joking goes on, which is quite loud, because you want to make your friend laugh 20 meters away. And there's 4 games going on at the same time, so it's a lot noisier than a tennis court, for example.
Thank you, Campbell. And while you're on, Campbell, just in terms of, we've had a couple of questions from Kelly that probably morph into one in terms of any reason why you went for a shared revenue model rather than build yourselves, and a follow-up was, do you regret not taking the whole revenue?
Yeah, the main reason was we don't have £1 million sat in the bank to risk. We haven't got anywhere near that sat in the bank to risk. So we did this at no risk to ourselves. We also are not a paddle tennis operator, so we're all basically volunteers running a sports club as best we can in our spare time. So we chose someone who we felt was professional and could do it. One of the reasons we went with Paddle Stars is because we looked at the directors of the club at the time, and they were all experienced in doing this sort of thing. One of whom was the guy who set up Go Ape from scratch, so he knows how to run a sports venue effectively, or a sports and enjoyment entertainment complex. So they are professionals who know what they're doing, and so I'm very happy that our deal is they're giving us a flat rate. We've given them a lease of 25 years. There's a break clause after 10. We get the asset if they choose not to restart again after 10, but we're also on a profit share with them if they go over a certain amount. And I'm very happy to talk through that individually with people if there are other rugby clubs and want to know what the details of that are, but probably not on a wider forum.
Brilliant. No, thank you for that. And yeah, you've answered the lease, and I think that's most of the questions. Obviously, I think Kelly's put a message in just around paddle courts generating noise levels between 70 and 90 decibels. I guess, if you've got 4 or 6 courts, that's fundamentally going to increase that around that area. But as Campbell says, it's a lot of fun, and a lot of noise is generated from that as well. But I think, are there any other questions that anyone wants to fire into the chat One thing from me, Campbell, just in terms of when I've talked to other clubs around the country that have put paddle courts in, not just rugby clubs, but other sports clubs as well. Obviously, the least benefit and the money that you get in is great. What other benefits have you seen in terms of new people to the club or secondary spend or anything else that you've seen?
Yeah, so it's a bit too early to work out what the secondary spend is, but it has entirely transformed the whole club, I would say, because I mentioned the sports we play, which are sort of rugby and hockey. So both of those are really, really busy from September to the end of April. We've got hundreds and hundreds of juniors. We're really good at junior sport, and all those people playing junior sport have all generally got a parent or two sat around wondering, what do I do for an hour and a half when little Billy is playing rugby or Emma is playing rugby or whatever it might be. So a lot of the people who are playing are parents of children who are playing at the club, which is great. But we get lots of new people come to the club as well and seeing what's on offer. So I think they've been fully operational since the middle of November. So we're 6 months in, but I think it's totally transformed the club for the better. We're busy all the time, and it's great. It's just given the club a whole lift. It's brilliant.
Real thanks. And follow up on that, do the rugby players play paddle?
Some of them do, yeah. Yeah.
Cool. And then there's one question around sort of average cost. So probably if I give an indicative from what I've seen, Jeff, across the country, and then maybe come back to Campbell, but I've seen everything from sort of £25 an hour up to £55 an hour in central London. And again, various sort of prices for peak, off peak, and obviously every different operator is operating very differently, whether they're covered courts or uncovered courts. But again, I'd say it's quite an easy one to find out what courts are being charged for locally. And the LTA have got on their website, they've got a map of all the paddle companies across the country. And again, you can drop onto that and find out who's in the area and what competition there might be locally as well. Just pass over, Campbell, if you don't mind.
You're right. If you play at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday evening, it's at Trojans. I'm going to get this right. It's £40 for an hour. The joy of paddle is nobody pays £40 because there's 4 of you playing it. So it's tenner for an hour's worth. And most of the courts get booked out for an hour and a half. So it's at the most, it's £60 for an hour and a half, which is 15 quid for an hour and a half. The people we're with, you can join and become a member, at which you get a discounted rate. You can borrow rackets if you want to. You can borrow balls if you want to. And if you play outside of the off-peak or you play a lot, there are different deals you could do by becoming a member or just playing at off-peak time, at which point the cost comes down significantly.
Steve, can I just add something that might help people? The LTA have got a tool which can actually give you an indication of how many paddle courts can go into a geographic area to avoid oversaturation. Because the last thing you want is, because we deal with this primarily with artificial grass pitches. If you have too many paddle courts, they will not make money. So if there's not any in your area and the LTA says that you need 6 courts, 8 courts, 12 courts, whatever, then in a sense you're leaning on an open door because they're going to be sort of saying the LTA will support it. We will look at it, providing it's not on taking up your rugby pitches, we would probably support it as well. So I think that's worth bearing in mind, that there is this tool out there. But if the LTA and the active partnerships are worth talking to, because some of the active partnerships have got this information to hand. I know that in Kent, they are getting it for every local authority. Speak to them and they'll say, actually, your area, it's saturation. Now, it might be the commercial operator might think that's not right, but just be aware that at some point, in some areas, there's definitely market saturation.
No, brilliant. Thanks, Bob. I've asked a couple of times if there's any more questions, so we've got no more questions to pick up. But first of all, like to thank Bob and Campbell for the time tonight, and obviously bringing their expertise and knowledge. As most of you are aware, there's lots of paddle companies in the market out there. Again, work with people that you can work with. Work with companies that have got a track record, and I know, you know, there's 3 or 4 companies that are working with 3 or 4 other rugby clubs at the minute. So again, they've got a track record working in that environment and know what they're doing. I put my details on earlier, and what we'll do is, assuming Campbell's okay with that, we'll put Campbell's email in as well, and we'll send the slides and the RFU guidance out. So that will come out next week as we go from there. But thank you very much for your time this evening. If you want to chat paddle, then please give me a call. And from someone who was quite skeptical at the start, you know, I've seen the benefits at some of the clubs, and you know, I've even played myself quite badly. But yeah, thank you very much for your time tonight, and we'll hopefully see you soon.